Ali Abdaal 是剑桥医科毕业生，在英国当过几年医生后就出来创业。实际上他最为人知的地方是各种生产力跟副业心法，真正意义上又会读书又会赚钱，还会经营油管的全才。为了减轻大家的负担以及在中文圈推广Ali Abdaal的各种心法， Life Kaizen 将为大家把英语圈的生活改善新知定期以超浓缩画重点的形式制作成影片，供各位朋友参考及分享。您的支持是我持续做这个节目的动力，喜欢的话请务必订阅、点赞、按小铃铛哦。
Okay, so the method is as follows. Basically, instead of ever writing any notes, instead of ever trying to summarize content from lectures or textbooks, what my friend Asay did is that all he did was just to write a ton of questions for himself, and then when he was revising, he would just go over those questions over and over again. And after a handful, maybe like 3 or 4 repetitions of these questions, he pretty much knew everything in every subject inside out. So how does this work? Let's hop into the laptop, as they say, and I'll show you these were the documents that he made for each of the subjects. So we've got HOM, which is physiology, we've got MIMS, which is biochemistry, and we've got anatomy, which is anatomy. And that's basically it. The method is going through the lecture notes, going through textbooks, but like what we all like to do by default is we like to highlight and like make notes. For some reason, we think it's useful to summarize our lecture notes or summarize a textbook or summarize a revision guide. And then, I don't know, I think the theory is that we will read over our summaries and maybe highlight stuff and maybe ask ourselves questions, but this is a purely active recall based method. All he's literally doing is just asking questions and answering them. This whole method is based around the principle of active recall. I have been preaching about active recall for literally the last 2 years, and actually even longer than that, since before I got this YouTube channel, just like in talks and lectures and stuff that I would give. I'd be like, active recall is literally the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever because active recall is the single most efficient study technique that's ever been discovered. There is a mountain of evidence supporting it. Active recall means is testing yourself. And the reason testing ourselves is so amazingly valuable is because the way the brain works, it's all based around how many times and how much you retrieve information from your brain. So we all have this misconception that in order to study, we have to put stuff into our brains. But actually, it's flipped on its head if you look at the evidence. The actual way to remember anything and to make anything stick is by retrieving information from our brains rather than trying to put it back in. So let's say we read something once and we've understood a topic. At that point, the most effective thing we can do with our time is ask ourselves questions about that topic. And they've done loads of studies whereby they've taken a group of college students or high school students or whatever, and they split them up into different groups, and they'll teach all the groups exactly the same topic. But for one of the groups, they'll get them to reread it. For one of the groups, they'll get them to make a mind map. For one of the groups, they'll tell them to read it 4 times. For another group, they'll tell them to make notes. And for one of the groups, they'll just give them a test on the subject. And then if you look at the results afterwards, like when they get tested later, maybe a week later, you'll find that the people that get tested, the people who did the active recall, who actively tried to retrieve the information rather than just reread it or make notes on it, those were the people that performed significantly better in their exam. Active recall is the way forward. And I'm waxing on about this for absolutely ages because, you know, they say that on average it takes about 7 repetitions, like 7 times hearing the same concept to really fully internalize it. And I think like the more people in the world hear about active recall and kind of hear about the good news of active recall, the better human productivity as a whole would be, and the better our lives as students would be, because we'd have to spend less time studying and more time doing the things that actually matter to us. But yeah, that's basically how the method works. It's really all about testing yourself. And this is sort of testing yourself. This is the concept of active recall taken to its logical extreme, where you're not spending any time at all writing notes, because that's a waste of time. You're spending 100% of your time writing questions for yourself and then answering those questions, dredging up the information from our brains, and then sort of solidifying those connections.